So, good evening, good afternoon, depending on where you are. Today, we're going to hold our last webinar in English in 2025. We're going to have another one tomorrow with the same topic in Spanish, but this is going to be the last one in English. Uh, this one will be about how to get an archer prepared to go to the Olympic Games. And we have here Phil Graves, who is the chairman of our development committee. He has his very important guests whom he will introduce. So I'm going to pass the word to, the floor to Phil, and he will continue.
Thank you, Sergio. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm glad you could join us. This is going to be a little bit of a different webinar. If you've been joining us for the previous webinars, we've had a lot of them with presentations, slide presentations, things like that. This one is going to be more of a moderated conversation. We're going to be talking with the following people that I wish to introduce. It's going to be Trenton Cowles is from the U.S. team, and he is an Olympic archer. And I don't see if she's Miss Noriega here. Has she arrived?
I don't see her yet, and
I don't see her yet. I knew she flew back to Mexicali yesterday.
Okay. She may
So
join us if she does. And I also want to introduce, and if you allow me to go ahead, I would like to introduce Coach Tom Hinojosa. And I mess it up all the time. It's without the H. But Tom is a full-time professional archery coach in the United States. He's specializing in coaching elite archers. He is a USA Archery Level 5 NTS high performance coach and an advanced mental performance coach with mental management systems. Coach Hinojosa has over 35 years of experience in education, archery coaching, and instruction, expertly integrating technique, training, physical training, mental management for high performance. Coach Hinojosa's recent coaching experiences include the USA Archery 2025 and 2023 Junior Pan American Games team head coach, the 2024 Para Pan American Championships head coach, 2023 personal coach at World Archery Youth Championships, USA Archery 2022 Jim Lasada head coach, and the U.S. Archery 2022 Copa Merengue head coach. And with that, I would like to go ahead and give Tom an opportunity to make a presentation, and then I'll talk about how we're going to do the questioning. Tom?
thanks, Phil. Good afternoon, good evening to everyone who's joined us today. I'm very happy to be here as one of the resources to provide information about the making of an Olympic archer. I think it's an important topic because virtually every archer I work with aspires to make the Olympic Games. And the question always becomes, do you understand what that aspiration involves, what it's going to take to get there? And the reality is often a little bit surprising because it really is a huge commitment that I feel like while many people may have the desire, the true discipline and commitment to follow through is rare. So all the more why it's impressive those people who do make that choice, who do make those sacrifices and have the discipline and commitment to see it through. Because I don't know a single Olympic archer that had a smooth, easy path that was clear that they were going to get there. They all had rough spots. They all had challenges that at the time seemed almost insurmountable, but they stuck with it, worked through it, and found their way out to continue their training and eventually, in many cases, make it to an Olympic team. But it certainly is not a guaranteed outcome. As in most things in sports, I've found outcomes are almost never completely in the control of the participants. You do the best you can, hopefully exceeding what other people might be willing to do. And when things work out well, you end up in the qualifying area of being nominated to that team that you've been working towards for many years. So I think it's important to talk about for those people who are still aspiring to get there, what it is that will set the stage for it. But again, there are no guarantees. You do the best you can, set yourself up for success, and then hope that that opportunity presents itself. So I'm very happy to be here. Trenton is an archer that was with me in the 2023 Junior Pan Am Games. I've known him since he was a young teenager and have watched him develop into the man he is today. Currently a student about to graduate from Texas A&M in the next couple of years. And yeah, Trenton, you want to say hello and maybe give just a brief background before we get into the questions?
Sure, yeah. Hello, I'm Trenton Cowles. Hopefully everyone can hear me. Um, I'm currently a master's student at Texas A&M. I've got to finish this semester, one more semester, and then I'm done. I got to go into the real world. My goal is still set at 2028 LA Olympics. I've been shooting for like 13 years since I started when I was 10. But yeah, school's been great, archery's been great, family's been great, and I'm excited for this holiday Thanksgiving break that we have is coming up soon.
That's great, Trenton. Well, thank you. And thank you, Tom. And we're going to get started. Let me just lay out a few of the rules. Because this is a conversation and some people are going to want to explore depth of the questions that we've prepared, we're going to try to be, flexible as far as just allowing you to leave your mics open. And if you have a question, just raise your hand. And if you want to get involved in the conversation, and I think you're going to find many of these questions that we've already prepared for the athlete and the coach, that you're going to maybe have that on your mind, and you may have some questions as well. So let's see if we can make this roll. If it looks like we're getting a little bit long on one of the questions, I just have to ask you to let's move on because we want to get it all in. All right. And so with that being said, let me just talk about the psychology and the mindset. And the first question is, what are the biggest mental challenges to top level archers facing competition? This is either for the coach or for Trenton. Catalina, Hope joins us. If she does, please let me know if anybody sees her.
Okay. Trenton, why don't you go ahead? You've been there, done
So
that.
as a top level athlete myself, I mean, some of the biggest things that we face are self-doubt, trying too hard, and just not getting in the flow. And I think these are some of the three areas you have to navigate as an archer. It's like, okay, like, have you fully prepared for an event? Have you done what you can do to the best of your ability to be ready for the event? And that's a lot how I get rid of self-doubt is, okay, I've shot the arrows I need to shoot. I've worked on what I need to work, and now it's game time, and I just got to let it shine. And that I really focus on, I've done what I need to do. And if you haven't, that's where the self-doubt's coming from. And then that's where you have to start building upon, like, okay, let's go through and get done what I need to be done. So I'm not like, oh, did I practice enough? No, like you get what you need to be doing and you get it done. Trying too hard, that's another one. It's like you have put in the work and now you're trying to make sure it's perfect. And that's where you really have to come ready with a process. Like for me, my grounding thing is just breathing. Like if I focus on my breathing, it really helps me reset, helps me stay in the moment. And I've already put in the work. I don't have to do anything extra. I can just put in what I need to do and rely on the practice that I've done. And then getting in the flow, it just really having that one thing that you can really focus on, center on. And if you can just keep it going, for me, breathing, oh, my breathing process is good, then I can just keep it flowing that way.
I think as a coach, my role, and to kind of towards what Trenton was just talking about, is that preparation phase to help the athlete lay out a program of training, which is planned far in advance. The athletes I work with, we have a 4-year training plan because the Olympic cycle is 4 years long. So while we may say, it's 2 years to our trials and 3 years to the games. I was in Texas recently and I said something about that to Trenton, and he goes, it's right here. It's right now. This is time, because getting ready doesn't start the year before, certainly not the year of an Olympic Games. It's far before that. And part of my role then as a coach is to help the athletes line out their program of training. I've always referred to a training plan as a roadmap to where you want to be. So that roadmap has to have benchmarks along the way. So whether it's in the next 3 months, the next 6 months, the next year, where is it that you need to be so that when you get to that important contest, in this case, we're talking about the Olympic Games, when it comes that time, you need to feel like, yes, I am ready because I have done the work. I know I've prepared, and I'm confident that I'm going to come here and demonstrate the skills I've developed. That leads to, in some cases, especially to a very experienced elite archer, a confidence which is almost shocking, but it serves them well in those pressure situations. There's one of the American Olympic archers who did win a gold medal at his games, and I asked him, "What was your thinking, knowing the challenges that were coming?" He goes, "When I showed up for the games, he goes, I'm here to pick up my medals." So he kind of just was so well prepared that he wasn't thinking about, well, I hope I do this. I'm going to try to do this. He was ready and he knew it. That's
And
all you can do in archery.
and Tom, that's an excellent point. And many of the I see many of the archery coaches that are on periodization is a tool that you can use to accomplish that. You see, Trenton and Tom both they use it. I mean, they use different parts and pieces. I teach periodization, and there's a new one out that we're now sharing with everybody. But that's a good tool that you can use, and then you have to adjust it, and that's what's nice about it. So,
Trent, can you explain what in your program, what periodization, the term that might be unfamiliar to some of the coaches or athletes?
So for periodization for me is and I would like to say I'm actually really good at it. Like for me, I call it timing my peaks of when I want to be shooting my best.
yeah,
And usually it's at specific tournaments. So I don't want to be shooting a ton of arrows right before the tournament just because like I want to be tapering down. So I'll probably have a period of like really high volume, really working on what I want to work on. And then I'll start slowly reducing my arrow count. And as I get closer to the tournament, like really letting the process flow, really letting my shot just naturally develop and not trying to control so much of my shot and just letting it happen. So come game time, I can just I've done the practice. I don't need to control things. I can let it flow. And I kind of go through cycles where I pick up the arrow count right after a tournament and then come down with the arrow count right before a tournament to really give my body some rest, really making sure it's ready to be able to shoot at its best.
Yeah, and
okay.
that's kind of the classic periodization. Catalina, I was just going to say she's going to join us. She has just jumped in, and Catalina, we're gonna get you in the deep water here in just a
Okay.
second. But let me just
Sorry, I
comment.
couldn't.
Can you hear us?
I'm really sorry.
Oh, it's fine. Hey, just hang on for a minute. To Trenton's point, during that tapering down in arrow volume right before a big tournament, once again, my role as a coach is often to reassure the archer that they're okay because they train at such a high level and such high intensity so much of the year that when it's called for them to start backing off a little bit just before the tournament, there is a sense sometimes of they get worried that, wait, I'm going to lose my strength, I'm going to lose my edge, I'm going to lose my skills. None of that is true. But it's hard for the athlete to be calm and confident enough to know that's true. I'm fine. I'm not hurting myself by backing off a little bit in order to be physically and, in fact, mentally prepared by the time we get out there and compete for whatever the important contest is. So, having said that, since Catalina has just joined us, I'm going to go ahead and let her say hello. Catalina's just very brief background. We've already done, we kind of talked about who you guys are, but go ahead, whatever you want to say.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry for joining late. I really apologize for that. My name is Catalina Jr. I've been shooting for, I think, 10 years, almost 11 years. Shooting for the US. I was at Paris Olympics on the team, World Championship team this summer with Trenton, and just been competing internationally and for Team USA for a long time now. So yeah.
Yep, and again, like Trenton, I've watched her develop for many, many, many years, and it's really satisfying to see her achieve that level that she's been working towards. And I saw her the year of the Olympic trials for 2024, and having watched it, I said to her that I think it was Vegas, I go, this is your year. And I knew it. And sure enough, that's the year she made the team. So I'm very, very excited to see that happen. Catalina, what we just talked about was what are the biggest mental challenges that you face during big competitions?
Um, yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges that I face personally is just being able to fully commit to things I want to do. It's very easy to fall back on habits that you have in the past. For me have been slower timing, aiming, things like that. And I think being able to fully commit is something that I've been working on really hard for the past few years, or like forever, but like really focusing on it the past few years. Just noticing like how much it affects like your shooting when you do fall back on those bits. Like you really have to trust what you've been working on and what you know you can do.
Okay. Well, with that being said, that actually leads us into the next question for the coach, basically. But of course, Catalina and Trenton, you can chime in. But how do you train an athlete to maintain concentration and block out the distractions?
That's a great question, Phil. And this I got this question a lot very recently. There's an athlete I coached that set a indoor world record last spring, and he was shooting at indoor nationals. And in the first round, when he shot a 300, uh, people really started buzzing about, wow, how is this kid doing it? And he went on to shoot in the second round, I think 2 8s and a 9. So his final score was 596. Still ended up being a U18 world record indoors. And the question was, how did he maintain that concentration? And the funny thing is, of course, when the shoot started, and I was talking to him right before it began, and I said, just one arrow at a time, make a good shot, trust your training, which is something we were just talking about. And when your mind is going to wander, that's something that's important to realize. You cannot block out distracting thoughts. You're human. Your brain is very active. So I believe the answer is not to block out those thoughts, but rather to manage them. Brain really can only focus on one thing at a time. So when that thought wanders into your mind, whether it's doubt, whether you're concerned about where am I in the standings, oh, on that last shot, something didn't feel quite right, you start overanalyzing it perhaps, you need to get back to what I call neutral thinking. And so for this young man, I said, when that happens, this was indoors. In fact, it was at Texas A&M. I go, look up and look for triangles. Because in the gymnasium, and both these, Catalina and Trenton know the place I'm talking about, there's a lot of triangles up there. So once he got to like the eighth end of the first round, where he had still not dropped a point, I watched him and I saw his head go up. And somebody said, "What's he doing?" I go, "He's counting triangles." And they looked at me funny. I go, "You had to know the context." Well, sure enough, afterwards we were talking. He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "When I started getting distracted," and that's another key thing, is to be aware that your mind has wandered. One strategy, and there are others, is to invoke the recovery strategy, whatever it is, to dismiss the thoughts that came in and come back to your core process of thinking. So let me differentiate there. And this is something, again, I teach athletes. You have your routine, which are the physical movements that you do to execute a shot. And then you have your process, which is what your brain is doing while that routine is happening. The process is where you have the management responsibility. The routine is a function of training and then eventually practice. We have a saying in many sports, certainly in archery, that good performers practice till they can get it right. The elite archers, the champions, practice till they can't get it wrong. So what I'm trying to say there is, going back once again to what both these athletes said about being prepared and knowing you're prepared, you've practiced. You know how to do your shot. When you go to compete, that's not the time to start doubting your technique, but rather trust it and have the mental strength, the mental toughness, as it's sometimes called, to go back to it, trust it. Next shot's going in the middle, even if the one before it did not. And that's an important thing, which fortunately, like any skill, physical or mental, it can be practiced. and it can be strengthened through practice. And I think that's something, again, that young archers don't appreciate, and maybe not a lot of coaches, because you can't see the mental training as it strengthens. You could see the physical training. You could shoot more arrows, maybe pull more draw weight, maybe not fatigue as fast. And in the gym, maybe you can move more weight, more resistance. But the mental strength is often something that's hard to measure except by the individual using it and their coach if they work closely. But it's important to recognize you can't just show up at a tournament and bring on the mental game. It's something that has to be part of your training as you go, as you develop those physical skills, they go together. So I make it part of virtually every practice set that we do. There is a mental process to the physical skill or the routine they're working on. And that's the time to work on it so that it is well known to you. It helps relieve the feeling of anxiety from the pressure so you can use the skills that you know you have.
Thank you, Tom. That's an excellent explanation on that. And I see that we did so have someone put a question in, and I'm not going to address this question now because he's asking about how to use a clicker, and that's really not part of our presentation this evening. We're talking about the coaching aspect and the holistic approach to making an athlete. But we'll be able to answer that question at a later date, and you'll be able to contact myself or anybody else that's making a presentation. The clicker is taught different ways by different coaches, and no one is better than the other, whatever actually works. And so with that being said, allow me to move on and ask the question, well, how do you work on resilience after a bad shot or a bad round? And Catalina and Trenton, that may be one that you want to jump in as well.
I feel like for resilience on like a bad shot after a bad round is really knowing yourself and what your ability is. Like if you're used to shooting nines, tens, nines, and you do a bad shot, okay, one, you recognize that it's a bad shot, so you don't have to worry about it. And two, like it's not like you to shoot that shot. So then your next shot, you really got to focus on, okay, what is it like you to do? It's like you to put it in the middle. It's like you to shoot a good shot, and really focusing on like what it's like you to do. So like, oh, okay, for me, it's like me to shoot a lot of tens. Okay. Oh, that one wasn't. This next shot, it's like me to do that. So it probably will be that. So it's kind of a snowball effect, keeping me going and helping me for the next shot and the next shot, and really forgetting what's in the past and just focusing on what I can currently do.
Excellent. Catalina?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think we've all experienced it. Like, it's very easy, like, especially when you're starting off, like, you have a bad arrow, so then you have another bad arrow. Maybe you have a bad end, and like, it just kind of snowballs into it. And you just have to, like, start working on that slowly, like being able to trust yourself, like what you can do in practice, having a very solid understanding and like knowing what you can do and transferring that to competition. So in practice you still shoot, like you might still shoot an eight, but like most of your arrows are going to be nines and tens. So you're like it's okay if I shoot an eight. Like it is completely, I'm just going to bring my focus back in and keep shooting those nice intents that I know I can shoot. And having like that reference, like Trenton said, of what you know you can do is really important.
Now, I want to point out how both of them include a mental management component, which is when and I will just call it the error, which means they did not hit a nine or a 10. When the error happens, be it as 8, 7, or, can't even imagine a 5 or 6, but it will happen. When it does, not dwelling on that, because as they both said, that's not normal for them. So why spend your mental time thinking about it when you can instead think about what is normal for you? Oh, well, I shoot tens, I shoot nines, and that is how I shoot. So I call it, in many cases, going back to your core values as a performer. Don't dwell on what might be the mistake, but rather dwell on what you do well and be confident in it. So I just want to point out that, see, there is the mental game in all aspects of your training, whether you shoot that bad shot in practice or whether it happens in the tournament. As a coach, what I coach athletes is to have that recovery strategy. So when that shot occurs, you already know how are you going to respond mentally so that you can perform the next shot the way you're used to shooting.
And that's an excellent point, Tom. And what I like to try to put together, and I say, and a lot of the coaches that I work with here, process equals outcome. Okay, and this
Right.
is all part of that process will equal that outcome. And I like what Catalina said is that there's an expectation of that process as well. So that's excellent. Moving on.
Uh,
Go
some
ahead.
advice, if I can add, advice that I got from a coach, during maybe a few years ago that I found really helpful was instead of waiting and anticipating for like call it the monster to come. So like I'm nervous and I'm anticipating a bad end. I'm anticipating a bad shot. What happens if I shoot a bad end? You are more so just preparing yourselves for when that happens because odds are it will happen. And it happened, I mean, I can speak that like it happens almost every tournament. It doesn't necessarily have to be a bad end, but maybe a bad arrow, or maybe my shot just started feeling off and I have to be prepared for that. Like w like not waiting for it, but preparing for it is instead what.
Again,
Excellent.
let's see, that becomes a recovery strategy. She already knows what she's going to do when that mistake happens.
Right.
She can go
Exactly.
right to it, recover quickly because she's ready for the next shot.
Excellent. Yes. All right. Moving on. How to transform failure into learning in an athlete? And I think that's Tom. We can start with that.
Yeah, I'll comment on that. Maybe the athletes could talk about how they actually do it. But the idea is it's a mindset that you prepare. And as I said earlier, you practice when you go to your training sessions. Because I think it applies at all. If you're going to get to the Olympic level, certainly, but even if you're not quite there yet, you are probably by your nature and personality competitive. I think both of our athletes tonight would agree that they're competitive. Probably I know I am in everything I do. Growing up with four brothers, eating was a competition. Riding our bikes to school was a competition. Virtually anything we were doing all day long. And so that's our mindset. The idea of failure, if you practice the idea that there is only success and learning, that's only possible outcome of any activity that you do. You have a desired performance that you want, that's success. You are likely, as Catalina said, the mistakes are going to happen. Knowing ahead of time that you are going to classify that as a learning opportunity helps a lot so that when it does happen, you don't have a meltdown, a spiral, a doomsday moment, or whatever, because you know it's going to come. And if you prepare to immediately take that as an opportunity to learn, that strengthens you going forward, because I would even say that makes you a better archer. We all know in life we learn more from our mistakes than we do from our successes. That's just being human. We can apply that to archers and their shooting. If they could take that same attitude when they shoot it in the middle, great. You can learn from that too, by the way. But when it doesn't go in the middle, you can learn from that. And I always say, in fact, I got this from another coach, especially for young archers. If you are a young archer, you're starting out yet and you're still developing, I tell them it's not a tournament, it's a learnament. So when you show up, know, hey, this is great. I have a chance to learn and become better. By the end of the day, by the end of the event, you will be a better archer than when you got here if you're prepared to learn from any missteps, mistakes, adverse events that may happen. But you have to be prepared ahead of time saying, I'm here to perform the best I can today and to learn from how that performance unfolds.
Excellent point, Tom. Very good. And I know I have an archer I'm working with now that is in that same phase, and we call him Chumley. He's a wonderful, wonderful person. But he's learned that when he has had a bad shot or not the shot he anticipated, his focus gets right back on where he needs to be, and he has a toolbox to reach into to apply for the next arrow. And normally he has been shooting a way better arrow, the second arrow. And matter of fact, we actually practice that on purpose. So now we're pretty much at the end of our psychology mindset set of questions. Anybody have any follow-up questions to the ones that we've had, Al?
Thank you, Coach.
Before I move into the next section.
Yeah, hi, Coach Phil. Sherwin here. My question was going to be more in technical session. I think you did a good job on the mental aspect. Is it okay for a question like that at this stage?
Well, yes, but let me remind everyone, we're still yet to cover physical training,
Right. Okay, fine.
nutrition, and form.
Good.
So we're going to get to some of the topics you might have on your mind.
Okay, so a holy question then.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a mental question. So how do you, or is it possible to train to eliminate nervousness at a tournament? Because you might try to brainwash yourself to, okay, treat it just like training, but you get there and you get nervous. How do you train yourself to come out of that?
So actually, that's one of the things that I wanted to say is like a lot of stuff is perspective, and nervousness, I would say, has the same like physiological response as being excited. So it's more of like how you perceive the event to be. It's like, oh, I've put in this work. I'm excited to show everyone what I'm ready to do. Or like nervousness is just the negative perspective of the same emotion of like excited, I would say. So I try to go is like, okay, I have put in this work. I have done this. I've made these changes and I'm ready to go. I'm ready to show everyone what this can do. So it's more of a flip, more of a positive take on it. And like everyone feels nervous, everyone feels a little bit shaky. But if you go in with confidence, you're like, I can, like, I'm excited. I'm ready to perform what I needed to do. I've practiced it instead of being like, oh no, something can go wrong. It's just a much better mentality to go into a tournament with and perspective in general, I think.
Catalina, I see you nodding.
It's Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything he said. Like, it's more about perspective, and a lot of people say that it is like very close to impossible to like fully replicate competition in practice, but like trying like to get as close as you can to that is like important. Like, it is very hard to go to a competition and make it feel like practice because especially if you're trying to achieve like high level, like go to the Olympics and stuff, like there's always something on the line. You care. We're like Tom mentioned, we're competitive people. Like I always want to win. I always want to do my best, no matter what, like no matter how small the tournament is. So those nerves are always going to be there for the most part. It's just more how I look at them, like excitement. Like, hey, I worked so hard to get here. Let me enjoy the moment. Let me give it all I got, regardless of if I'm shaking, regardless of, my heart. I think is more the perspective of it.
Yeah, so I think one of the fundamental things I wanted to make sure is said, nervousness is going to happen. Or I like what Trent says. I teach the same thing, that if you think of that feeling of, and I'll ask archers about a tournament, how you feeling? And they'll kind of grin because they know what I'm asking. They go, I'm excited, coach. I go, good. That's good. Just use that to focus. So rather than trying to block nervousness, manage it. Comes back to that same notion of managing your mental process. You're going to feel something. Manage it as a positive, as something that you're going to use, and then expect it. So you go out there and say, yeah, I'm excited to be here. There's another saying, which is pressure is a privilege. You earned the opportunity to feel pressure. So to Catalina's point about it's very hard to replicate that in practice. There is this isn't unique to my coaching, but there is a drill we do, especially indoors. Have the archers stand at 10 meters from a 40 centimeter target and do a scoring round of 30 arrows, 10 ends of 3, because at 10 meters, you're going to hit the middle pretty readily. So you put them, like Catalina said, these are competitive people. Once they have a perfect round for 5 ends, you start feeling the pressure to get that 300, which even at 10 meters, I'll tell you right now, is no easy task. But as you get closer and closer to that 7th end, 8th end, and maybe you've shot all 10s to that point, even though it's practice, that competitive mindset starts, call it the monster, starts rising up of saying, come on, you can do this, or can you do it? The doubt might creep in. And the quickest way to not shoot a 300 at any distance is to try to shoot a 300 rather than just try to execute good, high quality shots one at a time. So that, that again, I stuck in another way to manage nervousness and pressure.
And these are excellent points, Tom and Trenton. And one of the things that come to mind, and I'll share it, is the other thing of nervousness is that you're listening to the marketing people for the tournament, and it sounds bigger. It's more important when you hear Las Vegas and you're going to be competing in Las Vegas. People start getting nervous months before they even go to compete in that tournament, and then when they show up and they meet Trent and Catalina and Brady and everyone else, they really get nervous, and and you need to have a mindset, a set of tools on how to understand the importance of the tournament that you're involved in. Okay, so with that, we'll move on. We're going to get into some pretty good stuff here now. Beyond repetition, and this is for the archers as well as the coach. What is the most important component of archery shooting technique?
Yeah, I can see they're both thinking because
they're both thinking. I know if I said this, and Tom, you and I both know this. If I had said this in a coach league seminar, Trent, you know what he would say? Holding.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think the athletes, I'm going to let you guys answer for your own, but they're going to say it's all important. So it's hard to pick out one thing, but yeah, I'm at the foundation. I coach more than just NTS, but for NTS, yeah, it's doctrine that holding is the key. But once you guys talk about for you, maybe say for you,
I would say beyond repetition, one of the most important component of an archery technique is like how much confidence you go in with every shot. Like making sure, like, okay, I'm starting the shot, but I'm confident that I'm going to do it to the best of my ability, that I'm going to execute it how I want to do it, and that if I execute it how I want to, it's going to go in the middle. So not worrying about, oh, could this be an A? Oh, I might feel like, no, like I'm going to make this feel good. I'm going to do this how I want to do it. And just really making sure you go into the shot with confidence and you're going to finish it with confidence.
I mean, I would say focus. I think focus is incredibly important. It's something like um it takes like a special focus to be able to like shoot, especially like in tournaments. Like I'm sure like you have to almost like work to get there. And like to be able to do it in practice consistently is very important and like I would say quite difficult.
Yes, actually, it is quite difficult. And once again, even though we are at this point talking about physical skills, repetition of drawing the bow and releasing the string, arrow gets shot. Notice how Catalina mentioned the mental part is it's important at all levels of competitive archery, but at the elite level, the mental part is whatever number you want to give it, 90%, 95, 99% of the game when you're competing. It's key. And as I said earlier, you must practice it in order to be able to successfully manage it in all situations, or give yourself a chance to successfully manage it. It's one of the hardest things in this sport. And I'll just leave it at that. You need to practice it though.
Okay. All right. We'll keep moving on. This next question, how is training sessions structured? Do you focus on volume, intensity, or technical quality?
This is a great question for you guys because obviously all of those things are components. But when you say how's it structured, I take what we're talking about is, let's say you have a 4-hour training session you're going to do on a given day. How much of that is, well, first I'm going to get in 112 arrows, blank bail just to get the repetitions. And then I'm going to work on very, very focused loading so that it's controlled and I'm getting my arrow consistently at the same place under the clicker, that type of thing. I think it's all part of every session, but when I'm coaching, we definitely have a primary, as it's called, that we're working on any given shot. So it's a matter of, for me, knowing, and it's a collaboration, by the way, between myself and the athlete, knowing what needs work. And that's where we're going to spend the majority of time. And the other thing I'll throw out there is part of that depends on what time of the year it is and where we are in that 4-year cycle I mentioned. There's a time where, like, say, for example, once you get into competition outdoors and you're getting into the big tournaments, that's probably not the time to be doing a whole lot of shifting of your technique, but rather refining it. Now, that being said, unless there's a problem going on or you've got an injury or a blister on your finger you're trying to deal with. But it depends on what time of the year it is, what time of the 4-year cycle it is, and what your needs are as demonstrated at your most recent performance. That's kind of high level thing. What would you guys say, Catalina?
I'd say like overall you have volume, intensity, and technical like in every session. Like I I don't focus on something super technical every lesson, but when I see something in a video that I want to work on, that's when I'll get really technical. And that's going to be more over in the higher volume section. And I would say off season is one of the best times to have more volume just because like this is your time to make changes. This is where you can put in a lot more work, and then you can see it in the competition season where you're now trying to periodize and where you're trying to get the air volume to get to your optimal. This is the time where you can put in the work. I would say at the higher levels, it's more about intensity, how focused you are on each of your shots, like what's your intention behind each shot, and each shot you got to give each shot meaning, and there's a reason for each shot. Either you're working on something or you're focusing on something. You're like really running your mental process.
Okay, and
Yeah, I would. Oh,
Catalina?
sorry. Yeah, just the same. I think it really depends like what your situation calls for. I mean, there's times where you really have to, like Tom said, you really have to work on something technical, and usually, like Trenton said, that comes with volume um and intensity. Like, I think it's probably like one of like the most important things. Like it should be present in all training sessions. Like you need that focus, like to be able to um retain everything and like be able to like have meaning behind your training sessions. But I think it just depends.
Okay. And let me, that segues into our next question. And basically, how do you use technology like high-speed cameras or analysis software to improve your performance? And many people are looking at these apps that they have on phones and everything. So, Tom and the athletes, please.
I mean, slow motion, I think, helps just seeing like all the little finite details and fine tuning and really getting your technique really precise. And maybe some of the apps to really see like the structural lines of, okay, this is where you're supposed to be. These are the angles we want you at. Um, I don't use them a whole lot. I know my coach sometimes will send me videos with pictures of just like drawings of how he wants me to be positioned and stuff, but I rely on him to feed me that information a lot more than I go and use that right now.
Yeah, I also don't use them a ton. I think like technology, like the most I use would be like a scoring app on my phone. I think those are useful because like you can like plot your arrows. It keeps track of everything in one place, and like you can go back and see like, okay, like if I shoot with this bow, like this was my group with this other bow. There's just things like that. I think that's like the most technology I use on the regular basis. High speed cameras, they're good. I think like I've used them for sure. I definitely like Trenton like also rely more on coach feedback and also just feeling feedback and watching myself on video. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's as Catalina just said, a lot of the times the athletes relying on coach feedback. So I use, along with, again, I'm glad she mentioned the apps. There's technology is not just high speed video, but as a coach, I will use high speed video to give me insight that maybe the athlete and myself at regular speed, it's difficult to pick up. For example, there's a young lady I work with who I think I have a recent video of hers queued up here. I'll try to share it. Where in watching her shoot, if you just watched her shoot, you go, wow, that's a pretty nice shot. And yet she was consistently throwing arrows off to the right. And so when I took this video, if you could see it, you're going to notice right there that you could see that her pinky finger came way off her neck, and it was causing essentially the string to come off of her fingers one at a time as she kind of did this kind of strange outward twist. Looking at the end, you can go, well, that didn't really notice anything there. So without the high speed, be able to pick up that fine movement from anchoring to the very first movement when her hand came off. And this isn't a very good resolution. By the way, this is taken with a Pixel phone. This is not any real expensive technology, but it has high speed option on my video, so I can slow it down and pick up little small things that I could not see with my eyes. Without the high speed, I was not noticing that. I mean, you can see her hand position right there. That's definitely going to affect arrow placement downrange. So by the way, coaches, I try to avoid showing the athletes the mistake. I do not want to reinforce a visual image of what we don't want them to do. And I know a lot of coaches will say, look, this is what you're doing. Sometimes there's value to that, but I would caution you to be careful about using that as your primary feedback. I really try to focus on, what do we want you to do? What's the movement correctly going to look like, feel like, and how's it going to be executed? What's the cue that's going to get you there? There's a fundamental principle in mental management, which is the more you think about, talk about, or write about something, the more likely you are to repeat it. So if you're getting the athlete to visualize their mistake, now you've planted basically a wrong idea in their head. The typical example is Lanny Basham talks about this. We're going up to bat. The coach says, whatever you do, don't strike out. Well, what are you thinking about? Striking out. Now, I remember when I was a kid, my mom's last words as I walk out the door, keep your eye on the ball. Good advice from a mom that had no background in coaching. So I use the video for me to get insight so that I can then give my feedback to the athlete. And I usually will restrict it to, remember, you want to, and in the case of that young lady I just showed you, you want to have all your fingers come off the string at the same time with a vertical release as much as you can create. And then there's techniques you can do to accomplish that. So I use the video stuff, and I use any other technology I can get my hands on. I do also use a mental tool from Better Your Best. It's a monitor to monitor brainwaves to get a picture of what's the ideal thought process while that athlete's shooting. That's not something I necessarily would use with beginners, but that's another form of technology that I use. It's not a real expensive piece of technology, and it's a subscription you can get. But I found it useful for some athletes.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. And now moving on, could you quickly explain the basic training plan for the month before, the week before, and after a major tournament?
And Trenton, this goes right to what you said earlier about periodization. Why don't you follow up?
So I think if I have no events like a month before, those first 2 weeks are probably going to be pretty high volume, really working on any technique changes I want to do, getting down any, like making sure all my processes is really fine tuned and everything. And then that third week leading up to the tournament, that's probably the week I'll do the most scoring. I'll probably pretty much score every single day, multiple times a day, do matches, really ramp up the pressure, really allow myself to fall back on those previous 2 weeks of what I've been working on, and just kind of seeing where I'm at so I can set realistic expectations. And that final week is really tapering down, getting ready for the travel, just making sure my body is really in optimal range to shoot, making like really tapering down arrow count probably right before the event. And then right after, I'll probably spike it right back up and continue that cycle.
Okay.
Kat,
Catalina?
anything different?
Yeah, I do it a little bit different, like usually like that month. So like the week right before is like a little bit lower volume, more scoring focus, like just getting ready for the tournament, like get the scores. The week before that is like the highest volume because the way like I've like seen it done, I guess like it's like you want to like the spike comes right before like the taper down for like the maximum performance. So you want to have that spike of like intensity training before like the week a week to the second 2 week before. And then like the 2 weeks after that, they're more standard whatever like going back to the other question, whatever is needed in the moment. If I need more technique work, more technique work. If I need more aero volume, more aero volume. Just whatever is needed, I think is like and of course, this is depending if there's no tournaments going on, because usually we never have like a full month before a tournament. So we just have to adjust our periodization and training based on that. And then after the tournament, like Trenton said, it'll usually like go back to volume and like working on things that I can improve on that I noticed in that tournament. So if I struggled with like if I notice I struggled with something technically at that tournament, like I can focus on that coming back into training after.
Okay. Excellent. Thank you. Now, could you give us some strategies for competing in the qualification round versus the elimination round?
That's a good one.
You're still shooting the same arrow. You got to follow the same process. It's one arrow at a time in the end of the day.
So there right away, there's the strategy is if the athlete is feeling like there's something different, like Trent just said, there isn't. It's still you, same equipment, same distance, same target. And one of the things that I say kind of as a joke is in the qualification rounds, sure, you're shooting a lot of arrows, scoring points. Qualification round, people always talk about who are you shooting against? And I always say you're shooting with them. You're not shooting against them because they're not trying to block your shots. They're not trying to do anything to hamper your performance. It's still you. They're going to do their thing. You should be doing your thing. And whether it's qualification rounds or eliminations, it's really the same activity. Now, having said that, does it feel different? Sure. But I think, again, we're talking about some of the mental strategies for how to deal with it. You guys have anything?
I mean, some mental strategies for like a qualification round that's 72 arrows. I mean, you got tons of arrows. If you do have one arrow go awry, like you can let it go and be like, I've got 71 more arrows I can make good. Like one arrow is pretty insignificant when shooting a qualification round. At the same time, during a match, each arrow means a little bit more. But if you do have a bad end, you do have a bad arrow, like, okay, let's make it up this next set because it's recurve archery. Like you could be down 0-2 and then you can bring it back 2-2. And like once the set's done, like just forget about it, move on to the next one. And it's really, I feel like each round has a way you can reset and really be confident with the next set. And like, okay, in matches, previous set doesn't matter. We just got to focus on the next one. Qualification, tons of arrows left. Like, just got to worry about the next one.
Okay. All right. Catalina, if you had anything, if not, I'll move on. Okay.
I mean, just very similar to what they said, so I'll leave that there.
Okay. Yeah, and like what Tom said, I like that. I always add this to it. Archery is a non-contact sport, so you can't do anything about about that archer in the qualification round.
I will
Elimination.
add something. Something that I found helpful for myself is like noticing that there is like a pattern. Like you do, if you look at the error averages from elimination rounds, they usually are pretty close to the qualification round. Like especially for the top archers, or at least like the majority of the archers. So trusting that and like letting the pieces fall. Like you focus on your shot, treat it almost like a qualification. Like if you shoot a bad arrow, it doesn't matter because like you still have to keep shooting and they also have to keep shooting. So like things tend to average out and like you just have to trust what you're doing, your process, and like what you know you can do. And sometimes it doesn't pan out, and that's okay. That's part of the sport. But yeah.
Okay. All righty. And finishing up in this section of the questions, how do you train to shoot under windy rain conditions? That seems to be a question that all coaches get. And what is the best way to train, or what works for you?
Well, if there's rain,
What?
go shoot. If there's wind, go shoot. Like I see so many people in practice where it's like, oh, a big gust of wind's coming, so they wait until it goes down and then shoot. It's like, well, I mean, if you're gonna train to shoot in the wind, wait for the big gust and shoot. Try to shoot in the big gust.
That's right.
If there's raining, go shoot in the rain. And it's like, it's really being uncomfortable and being comfortable being uncomfortable and just dealing with different situations and almost seeking them out. Like sometimes, like putting a fan next to you so you can really feel the wind and just different techniques to where you can feel different situations.
I think there's also a balance. Like if it's like incredibly like raining and storming, like raining really, really windy, like a lot of times like if I'm being honest, like I will just go inside because there's also a balance. Like really bad conditions can like affect your shot, especially if it's like right before a tournament. Like this year's Arizona Cup, like it was really windy and official practice day, it was horrible wind. So I shot I shot a couple ends and then I decided it was time to pack it up because I didn't want to like reinforce like bad technique or anything. And trusting that like if you've done it enough, of course it is like Trenton said, it's important to put yourself in those uncomfortable situations. But when you've done it enough, there's also a balance to strike. Like don't always have to be, out in the rain. Like if it's like all week it's been pouring, like you don't have to be out there every single day. Like that's also not super beneficial in my eyes. But definitely like a balance. Like it is important to put yourself in those situations.
And I'll just add, they both alluded to it. It's a matter of if you are prepared because you have practiced it, as Catalina said, in a balanced way. You don't have to, if it's raining all week, go out every day and shoot. But gets to the tournament, there are windy conditions. She knows she's prepared for wind. So what she's saying is there's no need right then that day to go out there and practice it excessively because she's already ready. Now, that being said, and I was kind of grinning when this came up because I'm thinking in Texas, it's kind of hard to get rain to practice in most of the year. It rains in Texas for sure.
Oh no,
But
it's been pouring recently. It was just pouring the other day.
because there's some places where I mean I've known coaches and athletes that have gone as far as to get a sprinkler out to create water falling out of the sky, and where I live that's not a problem. But anyway, yeah, it's a matter of just again, once again knowing you're ready and as Trenton said, being comfortable being uncomfortable. I think that also is a primary function of a coach is in preparing your athletes for competition. A friend of mine, coach, said, our job is to make them as uncomfortable as possible in preparation. So when they get to the tournament, that's easy compared to what they had to do in practice. So rain and wind is all part of that.
Excellent. Yes. Now we've pretty much got through some of the questions in this section. Anyone have any further comments or questions? It's a good time that you want to get in. I see some people have been posting on the chat, and thank you, Trenton, and for answering some of these as well. So please go ahead and speak up, and I'll let you know if we can move on to the next section.
Yeah, so Phil, so just to follow up any question that's holding on. Now you did ask the question, but I don't think we got the answer quite clearly. When you asked Trenton, for example, the training volume before and after a tournament. Now Trenton mentioned high volume, and we have a lot of young archers on the call here. And what I'm looking for is like numbers. For example, typically for your high volume, what's your numbers per day or per week? And the other question is junior periodization. What's the longest period you have taken to rest in terms of not shooting the bow? 1 week, 2 weeks, and so on. That's my question.
So like for actually like even right now and for the longest time before is I don't actually count my arrows. I trust my body to tell me when I'm done and I know how much time I'm going to spend at the range. And if I'm out here committed, determined, and focused, like I will get as many arrows as I need until either my body's not feeling right, I'm not making the good shots I want to anymore, And I kind of like base it off there. But when I did count for about 2 months. Usually my highs were probably 350 to like 300 to 375-ish, about 350, and then it could taper down to 200 to even 100 right before events is kind of where I would be at when I uh to put numbers to my periodization there.
And just to be clear, that's per day. Yes.
Yeah.
That's for
Per day.
what?
Per day.
No, that's per day. Yes, that's per day.
Yeah. Which, that's an important differentiation for young archers. 300 might be per week.
No, yeah, I would say like when training for world championships, when training for world championship trials, I was probably around the 300 to 400 range of arrows. And then when you said what's the longest time I've taken off, it's actually probably been this year, and it was probably like 3 weeks off. But usually I'm not taking any longer than 2 days in a row off, if I can help it. Like maybe some family thing there or school thing here, but like I like to myself, I like to shoot 7 days a week and just have a really, really low volume day, maybe 60 arrows. I just think compounding day after day after day is going to be way better than taking a day off. But I know some people like to take a day off, they need a day off to rest. Um, and it's just different strategies on what you know your body can handle mentally, how focused you can be, for how many arrows you can shoot in a row in each day.
Catalina, I imagine you're going to be somewhat similar in terms of volume.
Yeah, it's pretty similar. Like a key difference is that I usually do take a day off in the week. Um, Sometimes it just depends. Like sometimes it'll be like I'll do like 10 days and then I'll take like a day off or something like that. But I do tend to take like a day off a week. That's just kind of like because I was at the training center for a long time and that like that's just how I've always trained. Like my coach is like that's always been my training program, so it's just stuck. It is different when like you train by yourself, like Trenton did, like at home and stuff. Like you just tend to go out more. But yeah, I tend to take a day off a week.
Now, I want to throw in here, I think it's important for coaches and any young athletes that are with us today that please understand these two athletes have worked up this many, many, many years, and they're training currently 6 or 7 days a week, maybe as many as 6 hours. I'm not saying shooting arrows for 6 hours, but maybe one day they might. In other words, if you're a younger archer and maybe you're only training 2, 3, even 4 days a week for a couple hours a day, I caution you about saying, oh, well, tomorrow I'm going to go shoot 300 then because I want to be like them. Similarly, we did a presentation. I was at a camp at the center in Chula Vista this past weekend, and one of our RAs, Christian, came out and talked about his draw weight currently being a little over 50 pounds. And when his thing was done, I got up and I say, you guys, you can't just decide, oh, I want to be an RA, I want to be an Olympic, and put your draw weight up to 50 pounds if you're pulling like 38, 39, even 40. You have to be very, very careful about your training volume and intensity to avoid injuries, because injuries in this sport are tragic. You have to stop shooting for way longer than you want to. And as both these guys have said, they don't take much time off. So if I, as a coach or as a physical therapist, came to either one of them, said, hey, you need to take 12 weeks off. See that? Glad you made that face, Trent. It is devastating thought to think you might be told that. But if you get a shoulder impingement injury, that's what you're looking at. Go ahead, Catalina.
I had an injury in 2019 in the like fall, winter, and I had to stop shooting for 3 months. I fractured a rib. So it was 3 months. It was bad. It was bad. I was not like sure. I mean, it was also like significantly like early on in my career, so like I didn't know what that meant. I didn't know if I was gonna be able to like get back to it, like how like if it was gonna be bothering me like for the rest of my career. Like I didn't know. Thankfully, it hasn't. Like it is like completely healed. I have not like had issues with it like since that time. But yeah, it took a lot to come back after 3 months. It's like almost starting over.
Yeah, so coaches, especially, please take care with your archers to help them know to not overtrain before they're ready for it. It takes years to build up to being able to shoot 300 arrows in a single session. And by the way, it takes hours to do it for most people.
I actually have that hour count because I've counted before, and at different ranges with how long it takes. I would say on my highest ever arrow count per hour has been 72 arrows an hour, which that's over an arrow a minute, and that's including walking down to the target pulling. Usually you're about 50 arrows an hour is kind of a good range, like predicting how many arrows you're going to shoot versus how many hours is 50 arrows an hour is a pretty solid range to be in. And I got 72 arrows at Woodley Park shooting 24 arrow ends by myself, just walking down to the target, being super efficient. But I'd say pretty standard, like with other people at a range, is about 50 arrows an hour.
Okay.
So there again, you get the idea. To shoot that many arrows, you need to have available 4, 5, 6 hours of your day. And again, for young archers, sometimes that's absolutely not feasible if you're going to school or you got other responsibilities. So just be careful about that. You don't want to get injured because you're trying to become an elite athlete too soon. Yeah, coaches can certainly help with that.
Well, with that being said, Tom, let's move on to you worked right into the next question. Excellent. Which muscle groups are most important for an archer, and how do you strengthen them?
I think the most important ones are the ones you use while you shoot, and the way you strengthen them is by shooting or doing SPTs or things like that. There's other exercises that can help, like going to the gym, trying to target those muscle groups, but I've always thought that to build strength with your bow, like handling your bow, you have to shoot your bow. Um, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And for people that may not be familiar with the term SPT, that's specific physical training, which is essentially, like she said, pulling your bow. That's obviously very, very specific. And in doing so, you can, and the SPTs by definition have movements which are not always doing the full shot. There's pumping drills where you're just going from what in NTS is from setup to loading to anchor, and you get probably the most important work there. The thing I would like to add to that, though, is to the degree possible, and once again, time is going to enter into it, opportunity to keep your body symmetrical and not overtrain one side of your body more than the other. I do think that's important to consider if you're doing a lot of archery. Spend some time doing some type of activity for the other side of your body, because if you don't, your muscles will become unevenly balanced, and that can affect the tension on your spinal column, which can affect your impingement of your nerves coming out of it. This is basic chiropractic philosophy. And that being said, very, very important, and I see one of my colleagues is online with us, she's going to appreciate this, your core. Training your core muscles of your body is extremely important, not just for your overall health, but for your stability while you're shooting, especially in things like wind or long tournaments where you're out there shooting a long time. Sure, you need shoulders, you need back muscles, you need arm muscles, but having lower body and core muscles trained as well is important. Don't forget those.
And that's a very, very important topic of the balance of in conditioning, and not overworking one side or the other. One of the things that I speak about, Tom, and is that with my archers is that I like it when I see my archers doing other sports that help keep them in shape. For example, archers that are swimmers are very good swimmers usually, and they're building the shoulders and the arms and everything up with the full body workout you get when you're swimming. And of course, I live in Florida, so it's easy to go swimming everywhere we have to go. But that's an excellent point. Let me ask you this: can strength training harm the archer's feel or technique?
I mean, the only way I could see strength training harming the technique is if you get injured.
Wrong.
I think that strength training will help you as an archer, like in way more ways than it could ever hurt you. I don't even think of any that could hurt you. I mean, I've seen many people like lifting weights, right? Like you can still do all the movements. You're still going to have the flexibility. Um, I I will not. I can't say that strength training will harm an archer's feel or technique. I could say it would probably enhance it because you're going to be more connected with your body. You're going to know how to do movements better. You're going to have more control over the movement. So I think you can gain more feel and gain more efficiencies with your technique that way, as opposed to actually harming the archers.
I agree. I think strength training is really good. Like I don't think it can harm you. It can only benefit you. I think like everyone should do it. And I think when you look at specific like especially like other countries and like their top archers, their programs and all like they all do strength training. It is a big part of their training and it's something like that we all also do. Like I'm pretty sure like pretty much all of the US team we all do strength training. Which I think is really beneficial.
Yeah, we used to have, and probably still say it in many corners of the coaching community, that we want athletes who shoot arrows, not just archers. So sometimes people will come to me when they're early in the career or beginners, um, that they want to do a sport. And I've even had parents ask me, does my kid have to sweat to do this sport? Or is there running and all that, which is a big red flag in terms of how much energy they want to put into it. But no, I agree with what they just said. I think a well-trained athlete who shoots arrows is going to have a physical and probably a psychological advantage over someone who doesn't pay attention to developing their strength. I think it's important.
Yes. Well, that's now let me again open up the floor for any questions or some thoughts that you may have had on this subject area. Okay, no one. Let's talk about a little bit of nutrition then, because we talked about the physical part. Is there a specific diet for archers, or how does it differ from other athletes' diets?
I think like saying a really specific diet is like not really necessary, but a diet in the sense of eating balanced, eating healthy is really important. I think um we're not like trying to like wrestlers, we're not trying to cut weight and like trying to make a weight class, but we do want to be healthy and eat balanced vegetables, eat enough protein, like don't like not a lot of sugar. I think like having being mindful of how you eat is really important.
Yeah, I
Well,
just started tracking my calories like past couple of weeks just to kind of see. But I mean, as long as you're eating healthy, getting the good protein intake, balanced vegetables, kind of just eating healthy to take care of yourself and even eating a little bit more because you have to remember we are athletes, we're shooting, we're pulling back heavy weights, we're walking a lot. Um, I like to eat carbs before tournaments just to make sure like it is mentally draining. It takes a lot of energy. But like in terms of like a specific diet, I don't have anything specific.
okay. Well, let me ask. Somebody got their mic on, please. But let me go ahead and ask Trent and Catalina on diet. If you shoot the Gator Cup, and the Gator Cup is 105 degrees, okay, would you have a different diet? Let's say for someplace where it's cooler, maybe in Southern California or someplace else. And that question comes up all the time. What do we
Diet,
do?
I would say no. Hydration, yes. If
Yes.
it's gonna be hot, I mean, I'm really making sure that I'm drinking a lot of water, making sure I'm getting my electrolytes. Um, I mean, I think when it's hotter, you need to snack a little bit more during the event, just because you are burning a little bit more energy, and you're sweating it out. Like maybe like a Slim Jim or some beef jerky, just something to keep you going because you're sweating, you're working a little bit harder. Um, but in terms of what I'm eating the night before or the week before, uh, I'm not changing how I'm eating leading up to a tournament. I'm what I know that my body can handle and what's going to make me feel good on competition day is what I will be.
Because you're going to be in that high heat area, and
Yeah.
and yeah, and that's why, yeah. one of the things, and I see Mandy, you raise your hand. As soon as I get done with this statement, please jump in, Mandy, because I know you have some valuable thoughts and very, very good thoughts that on this subject. But what I'm saying is, we talk about. I live in Florida. I train a lot of the archers in Florida. I'm down there where Jake. I'm further south than Jake is, and everything. And one of the things that we try to teach them is to prehydrate. Okay, prehydrating in our severe heat is almost a must. You got to have the fluids in your body. If you're leaving an air conditioned hotel room and going out on the field, within 30 minutes, and you come out of a 75-degree weather, temperature in your room, and then you step out on the field, we've seen people have real issues with the heat. Is that something that's a consideration for you guys from a hydration standpoint?
Yeah, I think, yeah, when it's really hot, like we always hear, everyone always says, like, if you feel thirsty, it's too late. Like you need to
Right.
like you need to prepare for that. You need to like preemptively hydrate yourself, take electrolytes, like make sure you're like drinking cool water is also important, like cooling from within, like make sure like yeah, I wouldn't say yeah, I would say like hydration is like the most important part, especially at a tournament. I think like I never struggle with eating because I will make sure I eat like a good balanced meal before a tournament. I feel like I eat more during tournaments because I feel like I'm like using more energy, like mental energy and like being out in the sun for long, long hours. But hydration is probably the most important aspect of it.
And here's a kind of a little detail, but I bet people are curious. During tournaments, say between ends, what type of snacks do you guys like?
I like trail mix nuts, fruits, so like grapes or I don't know, just different fruits or granola. Yeah.
I mean, I just have my grandma's smoothies, which are pretty much just orange yogurt, fruits blended up. So a
So,
little bit more sugar based, but it helps me keep energy, keep focused the whole tournament long.
no Cheetos and gummy bears.
Sometimes
Well,
they're like a little some
Sometimes,
peanut M&Ms are really I love peanut M&Ms, so like in a tournament I'll have like a couple of them.
yeah.
well, I'm a judge, and I've judged a lot of these big tournaments, and I have archers that sometimes come up and give me Snicker bars, and that's a that's probably a no-no, but I still enjoy them. So we have got 2 or 3 more questions left, and um, here's one that will be interesting. What is the most underestimated or least talked about aspect of training an Olympic archer?
The least talked about or the least practiced?
Either one, Kurt.
Because I'd say mental training is probably the most talked about, but how many people do you actually see mentally like doing visualization and doing that? Like, I do think that there is a lot that can be done on that aspect. Like, I've sat on my couch and visualized and wrote in a notebook, filled out a scorecard and done stuff like that. But like, one, it takes time and it's exhausting doing that type of work. But I mean, I do think once you get to the higher level, some of that work is needed, but it is talked about all the time.
I think maybe one of the least talked about is like the physical training aspect. Like I think like people know, but people don't always fully know the extent, like how many hours, like especially like pre-Olympic trials. Like I was out on the field like 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., like long hours, then going to the gym, working on my nutrition, all those things. Like I think, it's talked about, but I don't think to the extent of like how much it actually takes. Because the mental aspect everyone talks about. Everyone always says 99% of it is mental. But yeah, like how much actual like sacrifice, time, and effort it takes, I feel like sometimes it's not fully talked about.
Yeah, I totally agree with both of them. I think time, I spoke to a woman in California who's like a 4 or 5 time Olympic archer, and she still shoots at local tournaments in California. And we talked about what's the key factor in keeping to be an Olympic athlete? And she said time. As your life goes on, you get interested in other aspects of life, and you find that time to go train the way it's necessary to be at that level becomes very, very challenging to create. So time is a big one, and then the sacrifice that time requires. There have been, I think I was at a turn. I think Trenton, you were there when we were in Colombia. That it was Thanksgiving.
The Cali, Colombia, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so that's a big holiday in the US. So it's I'm going to be home for Thanksgiving this year, and it's kind of rare because I'm often at an international tournament during this week, and that's a sacrifice for me and my family, and for me as a father, and for young athletes in their families, their relationships, school. At some point, they may have to choose archery versus being a serious student. Now, these two are managing both. They're at a great university and they have a great archery program, but that's rare. And I'll bet even there, it's tough to make that balance. So I think that's something that especially young archers and their families may not always consider, the sacrifice it's going to require in your time and what that might mean you're not going to participate in because you're going to be busy shooting
All
or
right.
going to the gym.
I'll say even like being in school, and I think is like true for Trenton and I, like there's still a lot that we don't get to do in school. Like it's not like a normal traditional college experience because we're still investing so much time into archery. So we don't get to join clubs or orgs, like because those take a lot of time. Instead, like our org is archery. It is like going to the gym and working like on the mental stuff.
There's
So
no
I
like
think like
parties, there's no going like out on Fridays with your friends. Like, no, we go and train. Like, that's what we do, and we have our goals and we know what we want to do. And yeah, I mean, it's sacrifice, but it's sacrifice for a reason.
it's
Okay.
a little bit of balance. Like you get to go out with your friends like once in a while and like yeah, like visit your family and stuff, but the priority is archery and we make sure we stick to that.
And that's really going into our next question. The last two questions actually. And how do you build and maintain the relationship of trust between the coach and the athlete?
Well, I'll
Okay?
start this, and you guys can add to it. From my perspective, a couple of maybe three main points. One, as a coach, if you say you're going to do something, make sure you do it. So when you're talking to the athlete and you say, okay, well, I'll look into that for you, or I'll call you tomorrow at 9 o'clock to check on something, make sure you do it because that's a key aspect of trust. Fundamental to that, which is maybe a higher level thing, is the athlete's got to come first. It's their aspirations. And if they, at some point, I've had some of what I would consider my most gifted archers choose to leave the sport. And when we had that conversation, it really is much like a breakup in a relationship where when he goes, "Hey, coach, we need to talk," and I went, "Oh, this is not going to be what I want." But see, I'm right. Even now, I didn't say it's not going to be good because it actually was good for him. He was choosing to go into another aspect of life that was going to impact his ability to train, and he did. And he's became a very successful professional in what he chose to do. But my point is, his interests have to come first, or hers, theirs. Let me do it the way I should. The interest of the athlete has to be first. The medals they win are theirs. Those are not mine. And I really try hard not to say that's my athlete because they're the one doing the sacrificing, the work, the long hours, facing the pressure up on the line. I am there to support them because I choose to be in that position. But what they win, I'm happy about it. I feel satisfied about it, but that's them. And I always try to present that idea to them that I'm here for them. They're not here to make me look good. And they will go on. They will go on. So I think them knowing that I am all about their success is important to build trust.
All right.
I
Okay,
think
well,
also communication is really important. Like it's very to have that open line of communication. Like from the athlete's perspective, like sometimes like not all athletes want to be like Olympic athlete, or maybe they want to, but they're like, that's not my goal. Like I want to, do more things. I want to go to school. I want to like do all these other things. And like, communicating that what your goals are, how much you're willing to put into training is also like really important. And as an athlete, like Tom said, like as a coach, you do what you say you're gonna do. As an athlete, it's the same thing. You do what you're gonna say you do. If you tell your coach you're gonna work on something, you're gonna do something when you're at home, do it and like make sure like you communicate that. Or if you didn't, like why that happened. Like, I think it's like communication is like the most important part to building trust.
Excellent. Well, we are down to the last one, and as you kind of said, Catalina, here's my last question. What advice would you give to a young athlete who aspires to reach the Olympic Games in this sport?
I would say like go for it, and dedicate your time. It's gonna take time, like I already mentioned, it's gonna take dedication. But if that's your goal, you should absolutely go for it and give it your all. I think that is something that I did, something that, when I was younger, I that was my goal and I went full in. I went head first. I gave it my all and I achieved it and I'm still trying to achieve more. But if I hadn't jumped all in and if I hadn't given it my all, like I probably wouldn't be where I am.
All right, you got some thoughts on that one?
I would say yeah, I mean, I have to agree with Catalina. Like, if you truly aspire to reach the Olympic Games and do well, like, you are going to end up putting in the work because that's what you want to do. Like, if you're being told to do this or you're forced to do this, like, you're not going to have the same drive. But if you have the drive, like, you're going to make things work. You're going to build trust with a coach. You're going to work really hard. Um, and you just have to keep at it and you keep learning and you keep growing from it. Like, if that's your end goal, like there's nothing stopping you from keep trying to achieve that. So you have to just keep learning and trying to figure out how you can reach your goal, I think.
And I think they're both exactly right. Let me just add to it especially for young athletes. Uh, there are going to be setbacks. And those who eventually make it are those that have the mental strength to work through that and keep going when it seems like disaster has just happened or you lost something that you really thought you had it nailed, and setbacks and physical setbacks, injuries, they're going to come. It is not a smooth road. So if you really, really want to get there, have the mental toughness to get through those rough spots and understand success may be right around the corner. You just have to get through that really rough spot and get to the other side. I always like to say, like when you're flying, the turbulence is there, but so is the blue sky. Get through it, and you could get back to that blue sky, and on you go. We hope. So I think that's the other thing is expect challenges and commit to working through those challenges if you really want to get there.
Yeah, that's a good point. And as I said earlier in our presentation this evening, process equals outcome. Planning, periodization, all of those are fundamental tools to achieving your goals. And with that being said, is there anyone that has any questions or comments? We are done with the formal part of our question period, and we'll take a few conversations if you have any. Okay. Well, it looks like it's been a good evening. I want to thank Trent and I want to thank Catalina for being with us this evening, and especially Tom. And Tom, thank you so much for coming for this. We thought this would be an enriched program and a great presentation to have with the people, because we've been talking about technology of the bows and organization, administration. But thank you for talking to us, having the actual archers and giving their points of view. I really valued that you took the time this evening, and we appreciate that. Thank you so much from World Archery Americas.
Thank you guys.
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much,
guys for having us. Yeah,
Yes.
it was really good to be able to like share and
Yeah, and give back. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you guys, Catalina, Trenton. I appreciate you answering the call, and I look forward to seeing you next whenever that's going to be.
Yeah, you helped a lot of. I'm sure you've helped a lot of coaches and people, and And we really, really enjoyed this evening of conversation. Thank you
you,
so
guys.
Thanks, guys.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
much. Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
And we had a good turnout, Tom. We had upwards of almost 60 people this evening.
Yeah, when I adjusted the screen to see the view of all the people online, I was impressed. There's a lot of people, and I see several people that are acquaintances I know that it's really glad to see them here. Great session, Phil. Thank you for inviting me to be a participant. I really
Well, thank you, and I want to thank Ludis too, because Ludis has put together the a lot of the questions that we use.
Yes. That
Yes,
worked out
we know
great.
we're recording, Sherwin.
Okay, I got to run. Look forward to seeing you.
Okay, see you guys. I'm waiting for Sergio to get back on so we can shut it down.
How are you doing, Phil?
Hey, Nicholas, how are you?
Good, good. That
You
was
look
that was
good.
a very good session there.
Yeah, so we were real happy to be able to get two of these elite athletes and an elite coach.
Yeah.
Just have a conversation, you know?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, you guys, I'll see you later. Thank you, Sherwin, and let me know. Thank you so much.
All right,
Bye,
so
all.
take care, Phil. Bye.